Eric Wilson here, independent licensed mechanic with 30 years of experience. In the next 6 to 8 minutes, I'm going to show you the inside story on this 2016 Jeep Trailhawk so you can make yourself an informed decision. Now, coming in on the front left tire, you've got about 50% tread on on aggressive snow tires. So definitely down a bit, but definitely not out. Now, coming behind the front left tire, you got about 10,000 K left on your brakes. Definitely down, but not out. Okay, but 10,000 K left on your front brakes. On the lower left ball joint, this is critical. It's tight and it keeps the wheel to the chassis, so it is tight and important. This is the left outer CV boot. Now it's full of grease, and if it was ripped, you'd see grease all over the place. Important not to, because it lubricates the axle and keeps you going forward. The inner CV boot, a little harder to see there. The inner CV boot is good and dry as well. And more importantly, look behind it. That is a leak point. That's where the axle comes out of the front diff. And if it's going to leak, it would leak right there. And you see for yourself, good and dry. Nobody wants oil in their driveway. Now, this is the left outer tie rod. This is the most important thing in the entire car because it's the only thing that holds the wheels to the steering, and it is tight. This is the left sway bar link connected from here up to there. Now that function is when it goes around a corner, what it does, it dampens the sway, so it's part of the stability of the vehicle. So that's intact and doing its job. Now, speaking of leaks, I'm looking, okay, this is the bottom of the oil pan, give a shot of that. If it was leaking, you see oil all along in there. This is the bottom of the transmission. Again, another leak point. If it was leaking, you see oil all along in there. No leak, good and dry. This here is a part of your exhaust, and nothing wrong with it. Trouble is, though, is that people are stealing cats, and they think that this is a cat. They're reaching under, they're going cut, and they're going cut, and they think it's a cat. They take it to the wrecking yard, and the wrecking yard says, "You stupid idiot, that's a resonator, not a cat. Get the heck out of here." Well, trouble is, now you've got about $1,000 repair because some idiot couldn't figure out what a cat was, and instead thinking they're going to make some money. Now, that being said, if you buy the vehicle, I am going to put a free catalytic theft protection system, which is stainless steel wires on this, to stop that from happening. I mean, I can't stop stupidity, but we can't fix stupidity, but you can stop it. Okay, so that being said, now coming across to the right front tire, on your right front tire, you got about 50% tread on aggressive snow tires. The right front brake's about 10,000 K. Down, definitely not out. Okay, and your right lower ball joint is tight. Your right outer CV boot is good and dry. Your right inner CV boot, a little harder to see here. Okay, hang on. Okay. Yeah, your right boot full of grease and not ripped. That's important. The right sway bar link connected from here up to there, intact, doing its job. The right outer tie rod is tight and doing its job. Now, one thing I did notice, when I drove it on a test drive, I noticed the front wheel bearings are noisy. So I'm going to recommend that you get the front wheel bearings changed. They're like $150 a piece, plus another so $300 for parts and about $200, maybe $250 for labor for those parts to be changed. So that's just it's a noise factor. That's all it is. It's not dangerous in any way, shape, or form. Now coming back to the another leak point. Another leak point coming down following the exhaust, all intact, no issues. Everything intact with your exhaust, no leaks. Coming to the rear right tire, again, 50% tread, aggressive snow tires. The rear right outer CV, good and dry. Rear right inner CV, good and dry. Now, right here is a leak point. If it was leaking, you'd see it dripping all the way along in here, and this is good and dry. Another leak point would be here where the drive shaft comes into the differential, good and dry. And then another leak would be here where the left CV comes out and drives the left wheel, and that is good and dry. Now, on your brakes on your rear, you've got about the same as the front, about 10,000 K down, but definitely not out. The right rear sway bar link is connected from here up to here, doing its job. So no issues brake-wise, leak-wise, suspension-wise so far on the right rear. Coming to the right rear left tire, 50% tread. The rear outer CV, good and dry. The rear inner CV, good and dry. Rear sway bar link connected from here up to there, intact, doing its job. The yeah, your brakes 10%. You got about 10,000 K on your rear brakes, so pretty much 10,000 K all the way around. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take you up and show you the condition of the upper car now. Now, this is the rear left strut, and these struts are full of oil, and if it was leaking, you'd see it dripping all the way down here. This would all be soaking wet. It is not. Now, your rear left suspension, intact, doing its job. The rear right suspension, same thing. If it was going to leak, you'd see oil all down in here, and that is not leaking, doing its job. The rear right suspension, intact, doing its job. Now, the right front strut, same thing. If this is all full of oil, and if it was leaking, you'd see it all here, good and dry. The spring suspension, intact. So the right rear suspension is intact and doing its job. Pardon me, the right front suspension is doing its job. The left front suspension, same thing. If it was going to leak, you'd see it all in here, good and dry, doing its job. Spring suspension, no cracks, no breaks. So suspension-wise, brake-wise, leak-wise, I'm not seeing any issues so far. Now 116, 420 K, very low K. No cracks in your windshield, dash looking very clean, no check engine lights. And then, and the most important thing, the AC is blowing cold. Oh yay. Now I'll take you out and show you the condition of the motor. Okay, with the motor running. Okay, a shot of the exhaust with the motor running. Very clean, no smoke. Now, the first thing I do on any vehicle is, first of all, and it's something you got to be aware of as well, take the oil cap off of the motor, okay, the oil cap, and look underneath for any kind of white goo. And if you see white goo, walk away, because that would be an indication of oil and antifreeze mixing, which would be an internal leak inside of the motor, and that is a big problem. I do not see any indication of that, and we can very low K to begin with, but there is, and in fact, I'm not hearing any indication of anything, any concern-wise for the motor. Now, if you buy the vehicle, remember, come to me, free catalytic theft protection system, and I'm going to put a free 10% fuel-saving device in there that I've used for 20 years and never fails, and that is no cost, no obligation. So, just to summarize, the two things that I'm going to just point out, and it just is not that the two front bearings, I mean, they're not loose, they're not going to break, they're not going to hurt you. It's not a safety issue, but they are noisy. So just that you're aware of that. And if you want that to go away, it's going to take like $300 worth of parts and $200 to $300 worth of labor for those bearings to be changed up. Other than that, though, I am not hearing anything out of the concern. Brakes down a little bit. I mean, like 10,000 K left. They're down, but definitely not out. Anyway, hopefully that'll make you can make an informed decision, and get back to me with that so I can help you with those two things as well. Bye-bye.